And this, and it's very, very, very important. The second one, and I have three objectives. The second is I really want you guys to get value out of it. Whether it will be a happy session or not actually depends on not only on me, but how you actually choose what you choose to focus on, either on my accent or something else, right? Or you choose to actually, you know what, there could be something that I can actually deploy in my life to be happier. And this is what I hope that you choose to focus on. On that note, from time to time, you will see a clock, right? Right here, you will see a clock. And whenever you see a clock, it's time to either ask questions or leave. If you really need to leave, you're not going to offend me. I'll be much, much, much happier if you choose your happiness over it's like, oh my God, what somebody will think about me? No, absolutely not. Choose your happiness anytime and this way I will know next time it will be a lesson for me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. So we both, this way, by you leaving, will help both of us. You will choose happiness and I will learn a lesson. So we agree on that.
Some people will be
So whichever works, whichever works. Yeah, I won't, I won't talk to myself, but even if there is one person, if there is one person here, I'll be happy to share happiness anyway. That's what it comes back to me. So you guys are good to me. So gratitude, value, and happiness. Let's just be happy. So let's dive into this. If you Google the word happiness, this is what really comes to on Google. Content, cheerful, cheery, merry. And if you really comes to think about this, is that how we can possibly experience our life? Like always being on this up and high. I don't know, for me it would be very unnatural to be always being cheery and happy, because between life doesn't throw our way only happy moments. We have different moments in our life. It's easier to be happy, right? When you have your family together. So you're sitting down for a family meal, you just got a new house, graduated, the kid is born. It's easy to be happy. It doesn't require too much work. It's already there. It's those moments. But life, it's not only those moments, right? As we all know, if we're real, life throws all sorts of curveballs, very unexpected ones, and we experience all these different emotions. To be cheerful at those moments, it's kind of, I found it to be, unnatural. So what I realized for myself, that happiness is not the opposite of sadness. You can be happy in any moment. So let me just start from kind of how it all, for me started and why I started kind of exploring happiness. This is kind of at some point of my life, I was not even 35 years old. I was doing, started entrepreneurship, whatever. Had a successful business, news appearances, was ringing the NASDAQ bell, all sorts of things, talking about like, whatever, people a couple of times, right? So, but then I realized that, and something was missing. And I kind of looked back at my life, and let me just walk you through how it all started and how did my accent kind of led me to even being on the TV. Anyway, I was born 20 miles away from Chernobyl. So basically 9 years old. This is like, imagine I'm a 9-year-old happy child, whatever, Soviet Union, but I was happy. And I was born, so this was the first explosion, really, literal and figurative explosion in my life, where like all of a sudden overnight, everything changed. People started like, I don't know, remember COVID times, right? People started wearing masks. This was the first shakeup in my life, where, half of my class kids were gone because their parents were either physicists, scientists, or doctors. They grabbed their family, they left next day, literally next day. The half of the class, we started like taking some, measuring the, similar to the COVID sort of environment, measuring the radiation levels. So that you have COVID, not kind of just to give you an idea. Anyway, that was the beginning. 4 years into this, I don't know if you can see, right? With 4 years later, I was rescued as a part of a group of children rescued to Israel. So from being a Soviet child, just like living whatever life, my life was exploded. 4 years later, I'm rescued to a completely opposite environment. So mind you, it's not different environment, it's the opposite environment. Everything that I thought was good became bad. Everything that I thought was bad became good. I'm 13 years old. It's like another shakeup. Not to say 6 months into me being in Israel, a war broke out. So the missiles and everything. So now it's like what's happening? It's like what this is the beginning. That like this is the beginning again. It's not, I don't mean to be dramatic, but this is kind of what as I'm reliving this, it's kind of anyway, the war started. I had to go back, to my area. A couple of years later, I started my education. At a certain point of my life, I was going to two colleges at the same time because I started like a very prestigious program in math and education in university, in Russia, in Belarus. And but then like I sort of created an opportunity. I wanted to live also a free life. So I decided to go to the United States. So, and even though my mom is like, no, you're not going anywhere until you graduate, the mom's, story about the degree. And I said, Mom, I promise you that I'll graduate. I really do. Let me just go to another college because that opportunity doesn't come too often. It's not like from here you can take a ticket and go. It's like, again, it's a completely different world where you really have to work your way up to. So I concurrently was going to two colleges. I was flying back and forth to actually graduate from there, started my Rabbinical College of America here, starting to become a rabbi. Then I realized that for me to become a rabbi, I was going to be either like super holy or super cynical. I was neither. I didn't feel like I'm just too holy to become a rabbi, or too cynical wasn't really part of it. So then I went to business school. All this time I was kind of trying to, this is already in my early 20s, I was trying to see like what happiness is about. I was trying to sort of almost like detach from how it started and do something with myself. Because I've heard a phrase that it's not where you're coming from, it's more where you're going to. And I kind of, got into my head where it's true. It doesn't matter where you're coming from because you already been there. So and then a few years later, I joined the company as a floor employee upon my graduation, floor employee, and I became the CEO of the global company, global franchise company in 56 different countries, multi-million-dollar business. And I ended up in Florida, and I was not even 35 years old. And it's like, wow, not too bad for, Chernobyl kid. But then I realized I was not happy. With all of those accomplishments, with everything that I was kind of being in ups and downs, I didn't feel happy. So, oops, this is now kind of a little bit more. So I looked really in my life and I realized that, wait a second, I have a list of accomplishments and I have a list of things that I've been through, just a list of things, but I'm not feeling happy. So I looked kind of in my life and I realized I don't know again how much is left. I really don't know, like, but I know one thing. From now on, today is the beginning of the rest of my life. And the only thing that I do want is to be happy. I didn't know what happiness actually means. I didn't know, like, again, I started asking, Google didn't help, even Google didn't help. Even even the Chat GPT today didn't particularly help with that. So I realized that the only thing that I know for sure that the time will pass. That's one thing that I know for sure. I don't know any more, nothing else. Like I will keep exploring because I've set previously goals and I was able to accomplish them, but the time will be ticking. So as the time ticking, you can either leave, some of you, whatever, if you want to go, really, if you need or want to go, or if you have any questions before we jump into the actual subject, uh, ask me any questions about the past or about my story or anything, please feel free. And again, I can always tell you, just on this note, that I feel uncomfortable, I'll be happy. I'll feel uncomfortable to answer that question. I reserve that right. Thank you. So ask away. Yes, please.
Timeline that you have. What's the year that you became unhappy?
It was 2013 for me. That's when I realized. The question was, what was the year that I realized that I was unhappy? I was 36 by that time. I was 36 years old.
You think after all your success in 2013, you became unhappy?
Because yeah, the question is why after all the successes, I realized that I wasn't happy because I started thinking about happiness and how success for me didn't equate to happiness. In societal norms, what I thought, everybody says you got to be successful and that will make you happy. In my world, it's definitely a part of it, but it's not a whole. So therefore, even though I looked at my list and it was pretty impressive list for me, but it didn't equate to full happiness. Yes, at times, of course, you go, you can show off, you can just tell, hey, I did this and I did that, and people are coming and getting the franchise, and we're having a great time. And I live in Florida and driving my Lexus and everything, while a lot of my peers didn't make it to their 20s. So in comparisons, like, of course you can be, but it still did it. Okay, it's good. Next. That was for me. Yes.
Trigger that like, kind of snap.
Any one trigger, actually, the trigger, I would say the trigger, any one trigger, that was the question. The trigger was that I actually allowed myself a space to think what works for me. Because before that, I thought, okay, this is what works for my mom. This is what works for my friends. This is what works for my neighbors. This is what works for my team, for everyone in the world. But it doesn't matter for me. It's because little Simon was always a kind of, in the backseat because everything else took precedence before that. All of a sudden, I said, you know what, my life matters, at least for me, and I want to really give it a little bit more attention. It doesn't mean to become arrogant. It doesn't mean to detach from everything else, but a little bit more attention and to really listen to what your heart, to my heart says and say, you know what, that's important for me. Therefore, I need to kind of change something. Yeah, any other questions before we proceed? Sure.
How would it explode?
Yes. I was right, 20 miles away. Yeah, when I was in, whether I was in Chernobyl when it exploded. Yes, I was at 20 miles and I actually stayed there for 4 more years. Yeah, because like my father was in the military, my mother was a school teacher back then, and they were like part of the system and don't panic, everything is good and the government kind of takes care of us and people are dying in the meantime and it's like, yeah. Yes, please, Brenda.
In New York called the Creative Coalition, and I was in charge of the, anyway, Chernobyl happened, we had all the businesses. All the businesses in Chernobyl there, they're all gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
So now, I'm on 20 miles, where your friends died, where you all tested, people getting cancer.
yeah, look,
Or,
no, I mean, it was covered up maybe for a couple of months, but then, it's just like it's an invisible enemy. So the question is whether, like, how did I experience whether I was tested? Thank you, Brent. So, the reality is, yeah, once I'll just address these questions. The reality is that when it's an invisible enemy, it doesn't happen where it's like something strikes you and you're dead, whatever. It accumulates in your system. Therefore, as you slowly start seeing that, you've been tested, and of course, we were tested almost like on a daily basis. In fact, took the devices to go to the local farmers market to even test the produce, like the level, because we're given all the levels, and some people, because in closer to Chernobyl, the vegetables and fruits, they became this enormously big and everything, and they were very marketable. So a lot of people were tempted to actually go there, and there was some scary like social advertising. It's just like as I'm living this, it's pretty crazy, but it's yeah.
Any of your family members get affected by the,
Not there. I have a very small family, thankfully, and with this, I mean, it affected everyone. It was the degree of how, you know, my father developed like a heart condition, my mother, so it wasn't thankfully terminally, you know, then, and so I guess, and it's also affected younger people actually more than older people. That's the nature of radiation, because younger people, they're still, you know, they're growing, their organs are still developing, and they sort of absorb whatever comes their way, including the radiation. I don't know if absorb is exactly the right terminology, but that's, Susan, you had a question.
To share something with you now.
Okay,
I worked with the children from Chernobyl, Lviv.
Okay.
And took care of them. And all of them were, and they were, some of them had cancer, some of them, you know, did, but, and alone. I was in a hospital purely for children.
Thank you.
And it was an old SS bar building.
Right,
That converted into a hospital for the children.
right,
For me, that was very needed, and it made me happy.
of course.
You know, it's, you know, to see that you were able to get out and you got out healthy. It's really.
Thank you, thank you, I appreciate it.
That was phenomenal.
Thank you for everything that you did, because this one, you know, if you ask me what was the trigger, I guess, back to the trigger, the trigger, which was the straw that, you know, broke the camel's back, was what I shared, right? Which, like, I created space. But they accumulated, including, I was wondering why people from another part of the world, from the US and everything, would come to this contaminated area to actually help people. Like, we're not related, we're not friends. Why would you actually do this? So thank you very much, Susan. Thank you and everybody who did this. Like, I really, that's the time for me to,
And I contacted all the hat dealers to bring in baseball caps for the.
thank
children.
you, I appreciate it.
Some of them provided it, they wanted to, need to prove that it was going there.
And I'm here to attest it, that it's not even the hats or what you brought with you. It's the fact that you were there was part of this, for me anyway, personally, the medical treatment in a way. There was some hope. Just so you understand that it's not necessarily the hats. Yeah, thank you. Children are children.
Just make-
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So thank you very much, Susan. Did I answer anyone, everyone's question, Jason?
In that area. To get over being tired from being hurt from their land.
Been tired?
Yeah, from being hurt from their own land, being affected by an explosion, to be happy again.
You can, that's what that's actually, I couldn't realize until today, but a lot of people, and this is actually a lesson for us, I think for me for sure, that a lot of people can become quite comfortable in their misery. This is an interesting thing, even though they're unhappy, but this is like, this is my little garden, and this is my little house, and this is my little everything, and where will I go? And even though, and it's like, and it's quite, it's mind-boggling really how people can become uncomfortable in their misery. This is something never worked for me a long run. So I think, again, every one of us, I believe, we have our own, what I call the prison of our thoughts, the prison of our thinking, and so on. So, and sometimes we become very comfortable. I try to really break out of that prison every time. Pardon me? Yeah, practically. But even though it's a comfortable grade, it's like your swamp. It's like, you know, it looks familiar, it feels familiar. And another way, once you start believing that nothing is possible, that this is the way it is, you kind of, okay, what else is there? You kind of, you accept this as a new norm. So as your norm, that's it, that becomes your norm. Frenemy. So that would be like, yeah. So any other questions? Yeah, please.
Guessing it's not, I have not stated that it would be 80.
Thank you.
Something was missing in your life.
Yep. Correct.
35 and you started thinking with what you want to take, define your happiness
Correct.
and how to do it.
Correct.
It says,
Perfect. That's a perfect, thank you. Thank you for bringing us back into the floor. That's exactly what, yes. Thank you. So, yes. So The question of the theme of the, of the day is how to be happy when the world is changing, you're changing, and the life is changing. Everything is changing around us. So the truth is that the change is inevitable. And if you don't initiate the change, life throws something your way that you have to change. That's the truth of it. And on that note, I really want to share a very important thing for me, that my happiness is very practical. It's not elusive. It's not somewhere out there. I really want to touch and feel and live my happiness. That's what I really want this is very important. So everything that I say, if you don't find it practical, challenge me, because that's my North Star. Really make it very, very tangible. Not just like, oh, So I came with the concept of something, that can be related as an emotional self-defense. And we're going to go into details and everything. What emotional self-defense, basically, I'll just give you a couple of probably relatable examples. Traffic. When we hit the traffic, what is the first thing that comes to our instinct is to get annoyed. It's like, oh, of course, Florida's got so crowded. Everything is just, oh my God, like, oh, when is the summer again? Oh, it's gonna be hot. So what do we do? Like, you go into all those like distractive thoughts, you get annoyed, when in reality you can be productive. That's how I learned my Spanish. That's exactly how I learned my Spanish. So in traffic, because you put in, and I actually back then I had an hour and a half commute back in New York to my office each way, from Washington Heights to Inwood, Long Island, and it's like I can learn Spanish. It's like a language tutorial. Okay, all right, there's traffic. Can I actually clear those cars away? No, I can't. So what is okay? I'm sitting in the car anyway, so I may as well do something productive. So productive, and I'm not saying that productive is the only thing. By productive, I mean choose a positive outcome. And this is something that I actually subsequently start helping people to identify what works for them. Oh, you mean you don't want to learn another language? Good. We'll choose something that actually works where you don't feel annoyed, because that's really the point. Because time is ticking. All those minutes and seconds, we don't realize that we're paying with the time. And once like, oh my God, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. The time is flying and everything. We refer to time as something that we keep losing, but we don't have to. We keep, we can keep using the time because that's what we have. This is our resources. So productive, again, it just shows that it's not the only way. The next one, we get into arguments, some kind of misunderstanding. What is the first thing that kind of instinctively we get confrontational? That's the first thing, we get confrontation. Oh, it's that person. It's not me. I'm doing everything right. I'm so great. It's the other person. Is it the other person? Really? Is it like 100% the other person? So you can be constructive and say, you know what? I may not, we'll get into details again, a little bit more, but constructive is one of the ways to understand that another person, just take it as a notion that the other person is not necessarily wrong. Uncertainty. We're dealing with all sorts of uncertainty. I don't want to even list, but it's like I'm leading up to this day today. I had my own emotional roller coasters, my family, different things, that kind of whatever. Dealing with uncertainty, medical diagnosis, all sorts of things. So the first thing that you become anxious. That's an instinct again. What's going to happen? What the future is holding. And how much time actually what we thought that all the scary things that would happen never even turned out, didn't happen. So all those worries again, all of our instincts were worthless. So instead of being anxious, you can become pragmatic and see what are the potential outcomes? What can actually happen? What is it I'm afraid? Again, what is inevitable? We'll get into a little more details. This is just to give you a little snapshot of kind of how this emotional self-defense. Just to summarize this, if somebody, think of any skill, say you know how to cook, right? You know how to cook, and somebody says, oh, can you, I don't know, put together something to fix food. You don't go into like becoming anxious or defensive, or or whatever, you say, yeah, I could do that. I learned this. I'm trained well to do certain things. Or somebody, I don't know, martial arts, somebody is like running against you with a knife, it's like, oh my God, what I'm gonna do, or what, you know how to defend yourself. Same thing with emotions. If you're trained, this is exactly what I do, like what to do with myself. The beauty of it, when I practice this, it helps me first and foremost. Keeps practice, and then it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. That's why, Leslie, the secret, kind of a little bit of secret of that, it's here where like I don't just react, I respond. It's like, what if that person is not having the best day of their life? What do I know? Like, we'll get into this. So to summarize, happiness is the skill of doing the best you can in any moment. Doing, it's an action. For me anyway, again, it may or may not resonate because it's not an elusive concept, it's not a feeling, it's the skill of doing the best. Try to again, it may be complicated or not, but if you truly kind of internalize it, first of all, I would like to hear your feedback, but this is kind of all the definitions that I play for myself. That was it is doing the best that you can in any moment. So that's really the key for me. How, right? Oh, it's easier said than done, right? Oh, of course, doing the best. How do I choose? So just as a by way of example, if you look at this, the sky full of stars, it's like a beautiful romantic thing to look at, right? It's full of stars and so on. But how do you even approach? First of all, somebody who wanted to kind of go in space ended up, creating the equipment, and now we can go to space, right? Same with happiness, exactly the same thing. Because if you take the telescope into happiness, it feels like similar, like taking a telescope into the sky, you'll see the stars have structure. They have a reason. They're not just the floating substances somewhere. So similarly, happiness. So think of yourself, you're a star. You are a star. And your happiness consists of the following components. That's exactly how I, again, invented for myself. That's how I help other people to really structure that. It's not in the illusion, again, it has to be tangible. So the happiness starts and it goes from inward outward with self-awareness. At the very core, at the very, very core of everything, it's your self-awareness. What makes you happy? Do you truly understand what makes you happy? And this is going back to the trigger. This was my first question. It's not what helps makes my parents or my friends or neighbors or peer pressure and all that. What makes Simon happy? Or Brenda or Leslie or Dad, every one of you guys. That's the question to ask yourself. What does that makes me happy? Second one, it's the relationships. Now I know myself well. Do I have healthy relationship around me? Because relationship, they make us in a way, right? They help us to be even better. The third one is livelihood. It's an important component. We live in the material world. It's a very important component to have a livelihood. And the fourth one, it's an impact. The impact on the world, right? The positive impact on the world. Going like Susan did, like, many of you, I know, Brenda, people that I know, like everybody in my life, thank you. Like I know what kind of impact that you do, even if you don't realize it yourself. So thank you. And I realized that if you don't positively make an effort, whatever the little that we can do, I'm just a little person, what can I do? You can do a lot. If I can stand here right now, then you guys can do a lot. So really, don't ever, give yourself a free pass. Oh, I'm just a little person. You can do a lot if you want to, if you choose to. So you can really, and therefore, it's but it all starts with you. So let's go into details of how it all works. Self-awareness, right? The core of self-awareness. And there's a little more to what I'm showing. It's a little difficult to fit into like whatever 1 hour everything, but I'm going to give you the highlights. And again, we can talk afterwards. That's what I help people to actually do, go into details and really make it very tangible, like very touchable. The first question that I ask myself, like something, let's say something is bothering me right now. What is my level of energy? This is like really where I'm feeling, because if we realize, again, I'm very attuned to what I feel throughout the day, very much attuned, because I trained myself and other. Like, am I like, oh, just like I want to cover myself under the blanket and just like detach from everybody because I feel so depleted? Or I feel really pumped. I want to take on the world. I'm like so excited, and it doesn't matter what comes my way, I'm ready to take it on. That's the first assessment that I do. Because if your phone is dead, if you're right, you don't press it harder to start working, right? I mean, maybe you look instinctively, you look for a charger. We don't realize that if we feel low, even though our instinct, no, I'm gonna go through this and everything is gonna be, no, it's to recharge. Because after that recharge, you can tackle that problem with so much more clarity, with so much more confidence, with so much more positive outcome. It's not to just run. It's like you already feel depleted. Something has depleted you. You didn't pay attention to your own, or whatever. It could be some bad news, or whatever. Something depleted you. So recharge. Make sure that you know the next one. And where is your focus? That's the really important one. You go, something happens, like, oh, and you start really beating yourself in the head and saying, oh my God, why did I do this? And I should have known better. That's the first instinct. That's the first instinct that you run into, like, oh, well, how did it could have happened? And what's the point? That's why there is a lock there. Can you change what happened? Again, realistically, can you actually change what happened? You can't. If anything, you can learn a lesson and say, you know what, as they say, do the best you can, do the best you can until you know better, and then do better. So do the best you can until you know better, and then do better. That's really, again, those things that I apply every day. Just so, and then of course they again become different instincts, and then I replace my sort of negative instinct into the positive, and that's kind of my recipe in general. So the future is so loose, like you don't know. The best way, first of all, to predict the future is to try to create it. Again, it's the action of doing. But the most important, and that's why it's present, the whole gift thing, right, is what's in front of you, like what's right now. Like I'm standing right here, and I could be all nervous, like a kid from Chernobyl. I'm talking in, Palm Beach Rec Center and everything. I could be like, oh my God, what these people think? What if they don't like it? It's just like I could be all nervous. No, you're here right now. Just give your best. What is the worst thing that will happen? You'll enjoy the moment. Those who care don't mind, and those who mind don't. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. Right? We've heard some of this before. So that's really how, just do your best. You're in present, that's your focus. And the next one is the light switch. You don't like the presentation, like Danny? Thank you, Danny. No, it's all good. He said, like, this is this is part of this is, Danny is the one who, helped organize, yeah. Okay, thank you. So the switch, yes, the really switch of to realize that, do I change my perspective or the situation? Because instead of, I often observe, and again, me previously, oh, do I do this or do I do that? Like, oh, and you're kind of sitting on the fence and you're not moving anywhere, like you're going in circles. Where in reality is like, okay, what is one of the things can be changed? I'm in traffic. Do I change the way that, okay, I mean, I can pull over, I can sleep in my car, and that's kind of how I change. Can I clear the cars? I can't. So I got to change something. If I don't want to be miserable, something has got to change. And if it's not changing for me, I can initiate that change. Either approach this differently or roll up my sleeves and say, I don't like it. Say it's a little too cold right now, and adjust the thermostat. That's really it. I mean, again, it's easier said than done. That's why I help people. That's what people turn to me to, just say, okay, how do I have the situation and so on? How to, help me navigate through all of this. But in general, these are the concepts that are being utilized. So while Danny isn't here, let's talk about the self-awareness now. No, we'll talk to her. Yes. And it's time to, it's all good. It's all good. Of course. Yeah, it is recorded. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah. So any questions before we move into relationship and all other things? Yes, please. What is your name? Marlene. Thank you, Marlene.
It's what you're saying is really wonderful, very insightful.
Thank you.
What you're talking about, and
Thank you. There is a recording of this meeting, so we can, if you leave your, there's a sign sheet, if you leave your, and I will also, there will be, at the end of it, I'll talk to you, Marlene. You won't leave without whatever you need to be equipped, you know, to the next step. You won't if you don't want to. So thank you. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, for everyone who, you don't have to take the notes. This will be recorded and guys, I will find a way to get it to. Any other questions on self-awareness?
Question, I have a statement.
Sure.
Well, I wasn't even coming today because I am a very happy, motivated person. But I really love Leslie and I wanted to have a good turnout. Seriously, I said that. But the one thing that you said is the uncertainty, anxiety. And then I come from a spiritual orientation. I am absolutely convinced beyond a shadow of doubt, wisdom of God, and the divine will be done. Say God, you're not very God to see. But when an upset happens, an uncertainty of what you're doing, that happens to that. I go into anxiety. Why am I experiencing this? When I believe so strongly. And I don't want to have others get the gospel, it's usually as warring. So I love what you're saying. But I have not found the trick of shutting it off. I have these. I'm just gonna say, it's great and then you can keep. I can keep saying, okay. And precisely what you said. Outcome of these warrings. Never happened. I mean, the blah, blah, blah. But I'm just curious to know if they have a little extra trick.
Sure.
Anxiety stuff. Even though I understand that it will be done. I got it. I absolutely have it.
So the question is yes. Yeah, thank you.
so I think that's something that really happens to me where your mind gets activated and you just can't shut it off.
Got it. Thank you.
I got sleep. It's stuff in my brain cells and it just keeps going on.
Got it.
I would like to feel like I'm twisted and shut down myself.
Well, the only trick I have, if it's of any value to them, is that, okay, fine. Name the 10 best things that happened today. Now, mind you, this is what it was. That's like, okay, fine. I got up and I really felt like I wanted to go with my life. And then I just really tried to concentrate those things. Fortunately, somewhere along 6, 7, or 8, I've fallen back to sleep.
Okay,
Would like further
sure.
um,
So
trick.
thank you. What is your name? Just
Oh. Gina.
Janelle. Thank you. No, just know who I'm talking to, Janelle. Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you. Look at this turnaround. So thank you, Leslie. Is it along the same lines? Because I do want to address what was asked.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there are a couple of things. First of all, I deeply believe that I mentioned emotional prison, right, and self-defense. I really deeply believe that it's difficult to take yourself out of a prison, that emotional prison. You need somebody who can actually help you to do that. And I'm not saying in the moment, I'm saying to help you to, because those things I found better be addressed not in the moment, but when you're not in this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the episode of this little worry, it needs to be done in a calm environment to actually examine what triggers you a little bit on the other, just another trick. That's number one. So to get if I can help you with this, to get somebody that you trust to really work through and see what triggers you to help you, but not while you're in this emotional state, when you're calm. Just try to examine, because when you're emotional, try to remember all the 8 things, whatever, they come from a different lens. Everything's like, oh, that doesn't matter, or this doesn't matter, whatever. The second, on that note, what also I found work, that once you understand the dynamics of what triggers you and when it happens, and all sorts of little different triggers, it's like a recipe, right? The intricacies of a recipe, add different thing, it tastes differently. You can record yourself, or record whatever, record and say, and actually record all the things that say, this is me, I'm the same person. And when I'm in calm, I know that this will all pass. It's the same person, because you trust yourself, right? It's the same person that's talking to you in this, and say, this is the emotional something, we've spoken about it, and this way you don't need to exert yourself further to try to come up with all the, other things, because it can further upset. Oh, now I have nothing to even boast about today. Like, what are the 10 things, or whatever, because you can get in this permanent, in the loop. I don't know if it resonates with you, but if you pull up the phone and you remember just one thing, press the play button and keep it in a shortcut and say, okay, hey, sometimes it gets to us and we don't have, but look at this. A lot of things that we worried about, this never materialized, all these things and whatever. And you just may had like a bad dream. So take a deep breath, just breathe. Try to like feel yourself and go right back to sleep, and you'll be fine. So I don't know, Leslie, what do you think?
To how she feels, because sometimes I almost feel like it's fear that
But true, but
it's very subtle. It's not like I'm afraid of the big bad wall. But it's like my mind gets like super active, and I think it's like a level of, don't forget to do this, or what are you worried about talking to somebody tomorrow? It's like, please.
so, but the only way out, I really do it before Brenda. They say the only way out is through, right? Because just going in circles, I didn't find it be particularly helpful. I really did not. But if you process it like right now in this environment, where there's somebody that you trust, when the environment that you can, from your calm mind, you actually process the very same thing, you will see a completely different picture. And then you can use this as your own tool to build yourself up. And through that experience, that's how you, again, as a muscle. You watch me here, almost there, like, I came here, whatever, many pounds before. Thank you. But it's because of you guys. It's really because of Jen and people that are not here, and John, really, Josh, everybody, because you're creating this environment. Because if I would be sitting similarly, and I know, it's kind of a very loose comparison, but if I would be sitting and, okay, I'm so fat and I've been fat for so long, and whatever, and never will be able to accomplish, and whatever. And I know that again, that's why I'm being very careful comparing the two. But then you find yourself in a different environment that people say, one step at a time, and you will get better. And that's how what I find help me, and that's how I help other people. Because you can go endlessly in those circles and never accomplish anything. It's just going through the motions, exerting yourself further. Remember, depleting that energy and not being anywhere close to the solution. Thank you. Janelle, hope it somehow helps, we'll see. Thank you. Brenda? Yes, sir.
I think this happens to all of us, especially at night. During the morning, when you start getting, this is the human dilemma. But what really helped me is to realize they're not my thoughts. I'm a witness. And if there's that, for me, it's about the separation, then I can begin. Well, where, be the witness, not allow the thought.
Right.
I'm thinking the thought, be the witness of the thought, and then I can dig deeper into my patterns. Where did these patterns come from? Why is this particular thing triggering? Where is the root of fear? Because then I think we can begin to trigger the patterns that no longer serve us. How do we get up? Where, and it's,
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for sharing. But the key point of everything, again, it's very, for me, again, what works for me and what I observe, it's not to try to put, overexert yourself while in that state of emotion. It's to do it outside. If you know that this is a repetitive pattern, just spend a little hour or two, however much time needed for the process this well, and then see that it's definitely slowly will go away. That's kind of what works for me. Thank you. Any other questions on self-awareness? Yes, Marlene?
Do you natural in mindfulness? Or do you have a degree in everything you're?
Basically, I have a degree in education, and this is and then I went to rabbinical college to study philosophy and psychology and ethics. This was outside of that for more than 2 decades. Everything, when I would go to like temples and everything, I would go immediately to the books and read everything about this. I was just very curious about like a lot of people. Different people have different interests. For me, I guess the most interesting thing, it's a human being. That's kind of the most fascinating.
For medical school.
Yeah.
Is what you learn.
Yes.
Take courses in social work.
Correct. Psychology and philosophy, and yep. And then, yeah. Thank you. That's, you learn by, from books first, but from practice, then you learn even more. And this is kind of, yeah. Thank you for your question. Any other questions on self-awareness? We move to our relationships. Yes? Happy that you came so far? Thank you. Any questions? Maybe we come. Okay, got it. So relationship, I'm gonna run and then, I'll be more, faster than I was because I guess I was just enjoying my time. Thank you. Yes. What's our time budget now? 15 to 30 minutes. Okay. Okay, you guys, by popular demand, right? So, relationships. So now that we know ourselves well, like supposedly, right? We're self-aware, we're great, we know what makes us happy. Now we can start building a relationship. And by relationships, I don't only mean romantic relationship. I mean any relationship. People you work in the gym, people that work at the gym, or you're at the gym, people that come in, in the rec center, waiters, taxi drivers, trainer, everybody in the world, those relationships. I don't mean only romantic, because the dynamics is the same. So the questions are the following. First of all, if you notice those 2 fingers, even though it looks romantic, right? The inside of them, we place those little red circles, where we often go into labeling another person into like, oh, it's they did this and they did that, and I'm so perfect. I have a question for everyone in the audience here. Everyone, and you don't have to answer to me. Can you honestly say to yourself that you're giving 100% of your energy in all the relationships? Tell it to yourself. Ask yourself that question. Do you give 100% of your best self to that relationship before you start labeling another person? That's very important, and I want you to really think about this. Because when we think about the relationship that kind of don't work or they're not, first look in the mirror. Look in your own levels, right? Check your own vitals. Because the other person also have their own things that they have. That's number one. On that level, the question is, do you understand what they feel? And the key here is not assuming what they feel. It's understanding what they feel. Because if you bring a little bit more context here, from this to this, you see that even though the other person, it's always, there could be, the other person always can do better. Why aren't they doing? But here you don't realize that they have like all bleeding and everything, this boulder and top, like, and the woman's been bitten by a snake. You don't know what's really going on in the other person's life. You really don't, you never do. You know. And the third one is what is right over who is right. Because, and that for me, it started as like, I don't want to be right. I want to be happy. That's how it actually started. I don't want to be right. Of course, I'm not saying that we shouldn't defend our principles and what we stand for. I'm not discounting, and I'm the first one to like fight for really what I believe in. But I'm very careful choosing as what is it I'm actually fighting for, because I want to preserve my energy to fight for things that really matter with people who really care. Because otherwise, again, you're just depleting yourself for nothing. It's just like you're wasting, think of it as wasting your money. Think of it as wasting, I don't want to do the waste. Life is short, time is ticking. And because I promised you now to be faster, because the time is ticking, let's, any questions, comments about relationships? Anything? Yes, Marlene, thank you.
Your best, what's right versus who is right. Doesn't it depend on who you're talking to? Because if there are two people involved in a conversation, what is right? What is different? What you think is right and what I think.
Precisely, and if we, the question is like, wouldn't it differ, what is right, wouldn't it differ on two different perspectives? That's exactly the point, that you and I, and that's why let me go take you, you can say, you see the 6, right? I see a 9. We both have different perspectives, right? And you're not wrong. And just because you're not wrong, it doesn't, or you're right, doesn't make me wrong automatically. And we're often, again, instinctively, and I keep using the word time and instinct. Those are like little currencies of happiness as well. Instinctively, we think, since I'm right, I'm 100% right, the other person must be wrong. This is what kind of this we, but the switch is no, it's absolutely not. They just see it differently.
You're saying is you just.
Not necessarily. Exactly. You have different viewpoints. And if you truly make space and really, doubt yourself, right? And that I highly recommend, by the way, by Rudyard Kipling. It's like the poem If. Really highly recommend. Beautiful, like my everything. So you can doubt yourself and also leave room for the other person. What if they're not wrong? What if I just don't see it their way? What if they do see a 9? Because that's how they were brought up. That's what, those instincts that they developed, they were stuck in traffic for too long. They don't know how to switch the channel. They don't know how to learn the language. I am myself, I did because I was practicing. But just because someone next to me haven't done this, I'm not sitting and judging them. They just never, it's like, it's their habit, it's their instinct to go, oh, the traffic, I'm just keep going. But if you guys have any different, any example, I can use a different example. But the bottom line is this, can't you just like turn and start learning the language? No, I can't. Because for many years, I've been doing it differently. And it doesn't make me wrong. And again, if there is more different information, we can. Any other questions? Thank you.
Suggestion is maybe continue when you talk and take questions at the end.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, if that works for everyone, I'll do that. In fact, let me just, livelihood comes next and the impact. The livelihood, let me just go I'll spend 1 minute. Because really, not to overwhelm you anymore. So livelihood, it's all about the balance for me. It's not live to work, it's work to live. And you to, to balance the two. And on that note, this, I'm just a key point. I'm just gonna go because the income, which is very important, passion, you wanna love what you do, fulfillment, you wanna feel really good about what you do, flexibility, schedule and different things and so on, the team, people that surround you. We spend some time at work, more people that with more time that we spend with our loved ones. And sorry, and the role, your role, are you comfortable in what you actually do? You do know like your place and how you're contributing to whatever the work and how this role contributes to your growth. I'm not taking any questions at this point. Again, I'm aware and I'm, try being flexible here. Thank you. And then the impact, a few things. The only way out is through. Remember? Often we go into the circles of, oh, look at this crazy world. Look at this crazy world. Oh, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what happened? We go into all those loops. How does it actually help the world be a better place? Just because we perpetuate those bad news, is that how it helps the world to be a better place? Is that just to, again, if we're aware, it's like to go in circles. So did you hear what happened? Did you hear? And then you commiserate and everything. I didn't find this to be particularly constructive or particularly fulfilling or workable, whatever, relevant. I just don't. So therefore, smaller action is better than the big talk. That's what works for me. So involvement and how much you want to involve and whether you have a wisdom to really be the positive change in the world instead of taking all the negativity. Because again, in all this turn, it's not for the greater world. It's for you. Feeling that you're doing like a little tiny, minute little thing for the better world, it's much better than absorbing the negativity that comes your way every day. That's what, again, I found. This is back to the emotional self-defense, because otherwise it affects your health, it affects your mood, affects your life, and the time is ticking. While you're doing this, the time is ticking.